Xian means esoteric and wonderful. He was esoteric in the sense that none could really understand him. Zang means awe-inspiring. He was awe-inspiring in that he could do what others could not do. He was an outstanding person among his peers. His wisdom surpassed all those around him. He is the one who translated this Shastra on the door to understanding the 100 Dharmas into Chinese. Because the Dharma Master understood both Chinese and Sanskrit, he did not make mistakes in his translations of the Sutras, and his translations of Shastras are even more reliable. The three-cart patriarch at that time, Dharma Master Xuan Zang, had more than 800 bhikshus helping him translate the sutra spoken by the Buddha. They were a group of extremely talented people. The most renowned among them was Dharma Master KG. He was known as the three-cart patriarch. Why was he called that? It is because, prior to his becoming a monk, he presented some conditions to the emperor. His consenting to the imperial edict he had received ordering him to leave domestic life was contingent upon being given 3 carts. He wanted those 3 carts to follow him wherever he went. One of these carts was to be filled with wine. Basically, monks do not drink wine, but he considered himself special. Another cart was to carry fresh meat, because he liked to eat it. And the third cart had to contain beautiful women. Now you see how he got his nickname.
However, you should be clear that the three-cart patriarch was not an ordinary person. For one thing, no ordinary person would dare present such conditions to the emperor when he had been commanded to become a monk. In order to understand how special he was, we have to look into his previous life. When Dharma Master Xuan Zang was on his way to India, he encountered an old cultivator way up in the mountains. The old cultivator had been meditating there for so long that the dust that had accumulated on his clothing was an inch or more thick. The birds, unafraid, had obviously made a seasonal habit of nesting in his hair. They had built their nests, laid their eggs, and reared their young while he remained there in samadhi. It would be hard to say how many years he had been sitting in that same spot unmoving.
Anyway, Dharma Master Xuan Zang rang his bell to bring the old cultivator out of samadhi. The old fellow came out of samadhi all right, but he could not move. He was as stiff as a board, but he was able to ask, "Why did you ring the bell and bring me out of meditation?" Dharma Master Xuan Zang asked him, "Old cultivator, how long have you been sitting here in samadhi? What's the sense of never coming out of meditation?" The old cultivator replied, "I'm waiting for the red young Buddha to come into the world. Then I'm going to help him propagate the Buddha Dharma." Dharma Master Xuan Zang said, "But the red young Buddha has come and gone already. He entered the world and has already passed into nirvana. You sat here waiting and didn't even know the red young had arrived and the red young Buddha's Dharma was in the world."
"Well, what era is it?" asked the cultivator, and Dharma Master Xuan Zang related that he was from the Tang dynasty, and that it was the first year of the Zhenguan reign period. "That's all right," said the cultivator. "If the red young Buddha has come and gone, I'll wait for the white young Buddha," and he prepared to re-enter samadhi. Dharma Master Xuan Zang called him back saying something like, "Old Bodhisattva," or "Dhyana companion," or "Old cultivator." Those were the standard forms of address at that time. He said, "Don't re-enter samadhi. It would be better if you followed me to help propagate the Buddha Dharma. Although Shakyamuni Buddha, the red young Buddha, has already gone to nirvana, his Dharma is still in the world. Come along and help me spread the teaching."
"How can I help propagate it?" asked the old cultivator. The Dharma Master said, "You go to Chang'an, and when you come to the house with the yellow-tiled roof, get reborn there, and you can eventually help propagate the Dharma." That is because his present physical body was useless, and he would need to trade it in for a new one. "You first go there and get reborn, and when I get back you can help me propagate the Buddha Dharma." The old cultivator thought it over and agreed. So the old cultivator went off to rebirth in Chang'an, and Dharma Master Xuan Zang went on his way to India to bring back the sutras. When he got back, the first thing he did was congratulate the Tang dynasty Emperor Taizong on the birth of his son. "I sent you back someone to be your son. That was been a happy event indeed." But the emperor said, "No. I didn't have a son while you were away."
No, said the Dharma Master, and he looked into it and realized that the old cultivator had gotten off the track and been reborn in the house of the defense minister Yu Qigong instead. Yu Qigong was tough and had a black face. He was very talented and worked hard at his job, helping the emperor maintain the country and rule the empire. Probably the old cultivator was a bit sloppy when he did things, so although Dharma Master Xuan Zang had told him clearly to get born in the house with the yellow-tiled roof, the old fellow got it wrong, chose the one with the blue tiles, and ended up becoming the nephew of the flamboyant defense minister. Perhaps you can imagine what it was like being the nephew of Yu Qigong. As soon as he was old enough, he took a tremendous fancy to eating meat, drinking wine, and entertaining women. Perhaps because he had cultivated for kalpas, sitting in samadhi without ever coming out, he had had a few false thoughts like, meat isn't bad as I recall. And I remember it was pleasant to drink wine. As for women, they weren't bad either. So that when he reincarnated, he could not put down the contents of those 3 carts.
But as soon as Dharma Master Xuan Zang learned from the emperor that there was no prince, he checked things out and knew that the old cultivator was in fact Yu Qigong's nephew. So he approached the defense minister and said, "You know, there's someone in your family whom I sent here to help propagate the Buddha Dharma." The defense minister said shortly, "Well, you told him to come, so you tell him to go." Thus was he told, but he would not go. Finally Dharma Master Xuan Zang related the causes and conditions to Emperor Taizong, who said immediately, "I'll issue an imperial command and order him to leave home." "Fine," said Master Xuan Zang. "But it's likely he'll want to make it conditional. Whatever conditions he demands, just agree to them."
The emperor assented, and thereupon commanded the nephew of Yu Qigong to appear in court for an audience. "You must leave home," was the emperor's order. "If I want to leave home I will, and if I don't want to leave home, I won't. This is a royal command, and if you don't obey it, you will be beheaded." That put a scare into the nephew, and so he complied, but he still had the audacity to set up 3 conditions. "I want a cart of meat, a cart of wine, and a cart of women to follow me wherever I go." "Agreed," said the emperor. So it was decided, and the nephew headed for Deshingshan, Great Flourishing Goodness, monastery to become a monk. Since he was the son of a prominent official, there was quite a fanfare, and as the procession neared the temple gates, the big bell was rung and the gigantic drum was beaten to welcome him. As soon as he heard bell and drum he opened enlightenment and said, "Oh, that's the way it is. To start with, I was an old cultivator on that mountain." With a flick of his hand he waved away the carts, "Take them back. I don't want them anymore." But although he dismissed the carts upon leaving home, still people called him the 3-cart patriarch.